Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape. You can listen to us wherever you get your SB Nation NFC East podcasts, all throughout our podcast networks, all across our sites. You can, of course, watch us on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Make sure to check out bleedinggreennation.com, bloggingtheboys.com. If you do any of those things, you will see, hear, or read myself. I am RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys, or his self, Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. BLG, congratulations to the city of Philadelphia on not having their team lose the title round, something they had grown accustomed to over the last year.
Yeah, it really is. Well, first of all, a couple of things here. Number one, I believe the Sixers actually did make me sick because I felt fine physically on Sunday night.
Sickers.
Yes, not great mentally, obviously, on Sunday night
Mhm.
after they lost to the Celtics. And not only lost, but just no-showed. Really, like that's the part that's tough. It's one thing to lose because game-winning shot, buzzer beater, whatever comes down to the final possession. Like that's sports. But it's not sports, and it's not so acceptable when your star players just no show. But anyway, woke up on Monday, major headache. I usually never get headaches, usually never get sick. Was not feeling well, still not feeling amazing today, a little bit better, but not like great. So happy to be here with you. And number two, the second thing is that it really is uncanny how there are parallels between the Sixers and the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, teams that are perennial disappointments.
Mm,
Um, it does make me wonder, like, how do Cowboys fans do this? Like, how are
mm,
they like signing up for this uh, punch to the groin every year? They know it's coming; it's inevitable. I mean, the teams based in or have the Cowboys, quote unquote, America's team, the Sixers, literally name relating to the foundation of America. Both have
mm.
stars in the logos. There's blue in the colors. Too many parallels.
I know that you're, coping pretty hard right now. So, I just kind of let that be.
That's not a
Um,
cope. I mean,
we're gonna
I don't.
talk. We're gonna talk about the schedules, which do indicate that the Cowboys are America's team. At least the way the Cowboys,
But isn't that just more embarrassing for you, honestly? Like you're
no,
just all these people are just witnessing the Cowboys fail. Like that's
I
not
don't.
like you
It
like
it
that.
doesn't it doesn't bother me what other people think about the Cowboys. It bothers me what the
Mm.
Cowboys do sometimes. If you're
It
looking for
doesn't
material,
bother you
though,
what other people think, but you're bragging about how many people are watching the
I'm
game.
not bragging about it. I'm saying it like that. That's that
No, you're bragging
they are
about
the
it.
most watched, most cared about team. That's a truth, whether or not they're successful.
Well,
But
so
again,
what?
if you're
So
looking for
what?
material, the Dallas Stars are headed to the Western Conference Finals as of Monday night. We're recording this on Tuesday. It's now 10:44 a.m. Central Standard Time. So Dallas Stars, who have won a Stanley Cup and been to the conference finals a few times now, since the Cowboys last have been to their version of the conference finals. Also, if you're really looking for content, I'm surprised you didn't take this low hanging fruit. The Arlington
Yeah,
Renegades
I thought about reading this.
won the XFL championship over the weekend. So the XFL, let me see if I can do this. Started,
Started,
folded,
folded.
started again, folded, started again, and the Dallas-based team won a championship all since the Cowboys last even appeared in
Mm,
the NFC Championship game. There are not enough pathetic ways to put that. I mean, I've roasted them a lot with
mhm.
my own versions. My favorite happens to be the John Elway one. He didn't have a Super Bowl
Yep.
ring of any kind. He earned two as a player, retired, built himself a general manager career, which was aided by his on the field successes. And then literally built his own team that won the Super Bowl, which included one of the best players in Dallas Cowboys franchise history, DeMarcus Ware. So yeah, see, like that's where we're a little bit different. Like you Philites, Philadelphians, you guys just keep thinking like, oh well, it's gonna be the one. It's gonna be it.
I mean, I don't think anyone thought that about the Sixers for most of the season. It was like, oh, maybe this is different once they go up 3-2. What's the thing? I know this isn't the Sixers podcast, RJ, but it's kind of a hard thing to understand. Like, why would you win the first game of the series? Why would you fight from back from down 2-1 to go up 3-2 to have a home game to just no show at the end of it? Like, what's the point of that? Like, why, if you're just gonna lay down and die, then why not just lose in 5 or whatever? But like, why fight that hard to get yourselves to a point where then you don't care? Like, that doesn't make
All
any
right.
sense to me.
Look, I know you're sad, and I wish I was sad for you. I'm just
Big
kind of a
pet
different.
peeve when people are driving on the highway. It's like, why do you have someone tailgating you if you're in the left lane, only for them to get off on the right exit like a second later? It's like, why weren't you just in the right lane the whole time? Like, you had to tailgate me in the left lane, only to then swerve across 3 lanes to get off the exit. Like, I just don't. Be consistent. If you're going to cut someone off, then wouldn't you just speed ahead because you're in a rush? Like, why would you cut someone off and then drive slow? Like,
What are your
what are you
thoughts
doing?
on
What's the thought here?
what are your thoughts on steering wheel covers? Have you ever been somebody
Uh,
that puts the cover on the steering wheel?
no.
I saw one the other day when I was walking the dog. Just car driving by. Okay, it's interesting. Some are really thick. Some are just whatever. I mean, never really thought about it, so I was just kind of curious for your thoughts. So
I don't know anyone who has any, I guess.
okay. Well, are we ready to get through the schedules? Is that what we're ready to do?
The 2023 NFL schedule did come out last week
And we're
on
going to be the
Thursday.
first show ever to go through each game and predict it. We are going to, though, effectively predict the records for the NFC East teams, which I think is important. And it's important to mention, like we did last week, that, probably not a walk in the park for the NFC East. I don't even know that we're going to get 2 playoff teams here. I mean, a 2 is the minimum or the maximum, I think. I don't think we're getting a third like we did last year.
Stats retweeted some guy last week on Twitter that was like, "Oh, if you're doing win-loss predictions, that's just lazy." It's like,
I have heard
what do you like?
I have heard our
Who made you
friend
the authority?
Rob Stats Guerrera say many times that one of his favorite days of the year is when over-unders come out. I think you and he did an episode of The Oddcast, may it rest in peace, like, taking over-unders on various things. Like, so miss me with this. Like, I hate the, like, what good is it to do, win-loss? Why do people get so excited about the schedule? Because it's fun. Like, that's why.
Well,
Like,
also, what else are we gonna do? Will you
I
want
mean,
us to talk about like rookie minicamp observations that none of us are like? What else is there to talk about at this time of year?
both of these points stand, but like, I hate the like, why are people so excited about the schedule? It's fun. It's cool. Like, just let people have fun and enjoy cool things. That's really how I feel about it all. So,
Sports is supposed to be fun, and I feel like people lose sight of that.
well, the Sixers aren't fun. No sport in
That's true.
Philadelphia is fun right now. Okay, we're gonna go team by team, and so we will effectively kind of predict the divisional games. Like when we get to Washington, most of all of their divisional games will have been picked. But we go in divisional standing. The Philadelphia Eagles won the NFC East last year, so we start with them. The Birds, Brandon, open the season on the road against the Patriots. This is not. I know there was some confusion about this. Is not the Tom Brady like reveal or honor game, is it?
Yeah, it is.
So like, I know I want to predict that I want to like run off into a million tangents, but why would you do this? Like, why would you why would you honor him against the team that he lost? Like, he's obviously lost 3 Super Bowls, but like in like his most Herculean performance, like this is a like
His
do
most
it against
recent Super Bowl
that's
loss.
like do it against the Seahawks. You know what I mean? Like or against the Falcons. You know what I mean? Like this is not the time to like welcome home, Tom. This is dumb, I think, but whatever.
Yeah.
It sounds like you agree. There's no way the Eagles are losing this game. It'd be hilarious, by the way. This is the Matt Patricia revenge game,
Right.
I suppose.
Well, or if the Eagles lose, it's very much the Matt Patricia is a double agent game because I think that's going to be not brought up if that happens. But yeah, I have the Eagles winning here. I think they're currently like it's a 4.5 point favorites as it stands, which is pretty hefty as a road team.
Right.
So that is the expectation. By the way, I did make $190 from betting on the Celtics to win Game 6 and then Game 7. So this is who I've become now. I'm an emotional hedge bettor. So if/when the Eagles and/or Cowboys make the playoffs next year, I'll be betting against the Eagles in each playoff game and then betting on the Cowboys in each.
Well, I mean, if it's a playoff game, you would just do well to bet against any Philly team. Again, that the last year has taught us that. You know what I'm saying? Like at some point they will fail. So okay. Philly at New England. We both got the Eagles starting off 1-0. Quick week. So the Eagles, correct me if I'm wrong, met the Vikings. That was the night that like my mentions were run over with Eagles fans. That was week 2, right? That when they met on Monday Night Football against Minnesota. That was the Darius Slay lockdown Justin Jefferson game. We all remember it very well. While that was on Monday Night Football, this is on Thursday Night Football.
Yes.
So quick turnaround right away for the Eagles.
Yeah, I have the Eagles winning here. It is once again the Kirk Cousins litmus test. Are the Eagles actually a good team? And if they are, then they will beat Kirk Cousins. And if they are not, that'll be concerning and they will lose to him. I am going to take the Eagles here. We talked about the Vikings a lot. I know we're not on the same page necessarily on Kirk Cousins, but I think we're on the same page when it comes to the Vikings overachieved last year and are due for some kind of step back last year. Or this year, so I will take the Eagles.
Yeah, it's not an NFC North mixtape, but like I'm bothered like I'm pretty bothered that Cousins is going to become the face for their overall regression. Like, you know, I've never said that he's perfect. My stance has long been that he's a lot better than, you know, the internet makes him out to be. But the regression is coming hard
Mhm.
for the team as a whole, especially given what they did or really did not do over the course of the offseason.
Yeah.
So Cousins, even if you or anyone agrees with me that he is not as bad as people tend to believe he is, cannot carry what the Vikings have made themselves out to be. So yeah, I mean, I have a hard time seeing how you know they're competitive in these games. I mean, all the one score games we talked about a million times, but yeah, I've
Just
got the
got rid
Eagles
of
winning this one
Zadarius Smith too. Like that just makes
for
their team
nothing.
worse this year. Yeah.
And on the verge of, not that I think this like makes us feel dramatically different, but on the verge of getting rid of Dalvin Cook. So it's
Mhm.
just, you know, this is not a great time, I think, to be a member of the Vikings. But so back to back primetime games, Eagles go from Thursday Night Football on the road then to visiting the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football.
This
I
happened
do,
last year too when they played the Texans and then played the Commanders. Like they had this unusually large gap between games.
yeah, and they get that rest advantage over the Bucks. Not that the Bucks are going to be anything
Well, it's not a
crazy.
full advantage though, because then like the other team has that extra day too. Not to say it's they still have, yes, more rest days total, but you lose some of the advantage from a normal Thursday to Sunday as opposed to the Thursday to Monday.
Um, this game is in Tampa. It's on primetime, as
Why is
mentioned.
this on
This is,
prime time? What
I don't
is
know.
going on here?
I don't know, but this is one of two Monday night games. I actually said on Monday Football Monday this week that I think Week Three's primetime games all stink. Like
Hmm.
just because the Bucks stink. The other Monday night game this week sucks. The Rams in Cincinnati. Like, does that excite you at all?
The Rams versus Cincinnati, like this was
Yeah,
the Super Bowl rematch, but years
yeah,
later.
like the most boring Super Bowl of all time. Like it was just whatever. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't think the Eagles, like, I'm sure, like, we could sit here and be like, well, they're gonna win, they're gonna win, I don't think the Eagles are starting off like 7-0 or anything like that. But it's hard to see the Bucks being the team that they lose to, and Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask or whatever.
I think the only angle I can see here is this is the rematch of the playoff Jalen Hurts' first playoff game. And in that sense, I think the Eagles kind of want this game maybe more than the Bucks do. And that's all I can come up with. So I have the Eagles starting
Um,
3-0.
if Baker's starting, you've got the Oklahoma quarterbacks going on. You know what I
Okay.
mean? You know, depending on how you categorize Jalen Hurts. Congratulations to Jalen Hurts on receiving his master's over the weekend from
That's
Oklahoma.
really
That is super
impressive.
cool.
Like
It's super
consider
impressive.
considering like how does he have the time for that? Because Jalen Hurts is known to be Mr. like grind guy, like never stops like working out and whatever. And also he's getting his master's. Like he is
I've
very much a renaissance man.
I've said this many times. Like, I hate that he plays for the Eagles because, like, by every
Sure.
other measure, he's super awesome and super easy to like. And I do like him. I really like who Jalen Hurts is as a person. I
Yeah.
just hate the team that he plays for. Okay, so then back at home, the Eagles are. We both got them at 3-0, hosting the Commanders. They lost this game last year. This was on Monday Night Football. So again, I think there's a stumble point at some point here. Um, maybe this is it, but it's
Mm.
it's so hard to believe in the command. Like, again, like, just looking for weird, clunky, extracurricular things. Like, maybe, but like, again, it's real. I would pick the Eagles, but I think that it's difficult to see any team always like 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0.
Well, the Eagles did do it last year. I do think it's possible that the Eagles lose one of the Commanders games, not just because it happened last year, but just it's a divisional matchup.
Right.
And the Commanders, like for recent history, no matter what their team has looked like exactly, like the Eagles don't just walk all over them, especially the way they have against the Giants. So for whatever reason, I'm not going to predict the Eagles to lose to the Commanders just because I think the Commanders have the potential to be really, really bad, even worse than I thought when I actually went through the record prediction. So it's hard for me to pick it, but I can't say like I would be shocked. I would be more surprised if the Eagles lost to the Giants this year, even though I think the Giants will be a better overall team than I did if they lost one to the Commanders.
I tweeted out on Monday my usual, like, looking at the Cowboys schedule by opposing quarterbacks thing, and it's so silly to list Sam Howell. Like, you know what I mean? It's just actually fundamentally silly, but that's who they are. Shout out to Josh Harris though. This is the first like point of reckoning for him, I suppose, because that really matters that he owns the Sixers and the Commanders,
I mean,
obviously.
it does
Um,
because there's interest in terms of money being spent, his own money.
there's not. That's silly.
There
That's like
is.
that's like saying who was the It's Always Sunny actor
Okay,
that
so
went
he's
in with.
selling second round picks. What's he selling? Those are literally not like more for cap space for the Sixers, but are literally just more money in his pocket. So then what is
Who
Josh Harris doing with that money?
who
It
i-
doesn't
who is
necessarily have
the
to be doing something to improve the Sixers. It might be going towards buying the Commanders or
I'm
improving the Commanders facilities.
I'm blanking on his name. It's Always Sunny actor that went in with Ryan Reynolds on Wrexham.
Um, um, yeah,
Rob,
Mac,
Rob, yeah.
Rob McElhenney.
Thank you. So like, is he like a loser for not buying the Philadelphia Union? Like, how dare he? Like,
I
every
mean, that's
dollar he
different.
spends is not helping the city of Philadelphia. It's
But
hurting
it's
the
not the
overall
same thing at
metropolis
all.
of this.
That's
It's
very
totally the
like
same. It's
no, it's
ridiculous.
not.
It's
We're
totally
talking
the
about
same.
conflict of interest versus
It's
like
a
someone's
conflict.
personal
Every dollar
preference.
he spends on that team is a
He's a
dollar
private
against what he could be
citizen. He's
spending
not like a
towards like
team
his
owner
suite as an
already.
Eagles fan.
He's not a
It's,
team
you know,
owner already in
he's not
terms of
he's not a
something in the Philadelphia city of Philadelphia, and then buying another team or helping another team that is a direct rival
not
to
a
the
stout
city,
enough Eagles
the
fan,
Philadelphia
Rob.
team.
Anyway, so okay, we're gonna give the Eagles the win
You're
here.
the king of apples to oranges comparisons.
Do you like apples or oranges more?
Um, you're talking about an actual fruit or
Yeah,
like
like
the
not the
flavor?
flavor. No, like
Okay,
an
yeah.
actual fruit.
Man, that's tough. I don't really love either, to be honest. Like, I'm not like excited about either. But I guess it depends on the kind of apple. I think you can get a really good apple, like Granny Smith apple. I like one of those.
I like oranges better, but apples are easier to disassemble or
Yeah, that's the
like
thing. The
set up.
orange, like you gotta, like it's just kind of a
And then your
pain.
hands, then you gotta like wash your hands to prepare to eat it. Like, I like a good orange
Yeah,
with like some sort of, not salt. I know we had the watermelon salt discussion last week, but like some kind of chili powder. That I love that. But yeah, it's still, so you gotta peel it. It's just big old thing.
I like
Okay,
grapes. Grapes are
grapes
good,
are on.
good
You ever
fruit.
had have I told you this before? You had cotton
Cotton
candy
candy
grapes?
grapes.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
slap.
they're
Anyway,
good.
okay, so we both got the Eagles 4-0. Then on the West Coast against the mighty Sean McVay. So back, I think they drop maybe two of these next three. So you've got at LA to play the Rams. It's not that one, but then at the Jets, I believe that's one of the games that the Eagles are currently underdogs in. And then at
Yeah, I think it's
home
like 1
against
point.
and then at home against the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. So maybe it's the two AFC East games, and you would prefer that, obviously. But like they're like, I don't think they get through this point undefeated. We have them beginning this point at least. And I don't think the Rams are like anything to be afraid of. I'm just having a conversation.
The Eagles are favored in all of their games except week 6 against the Jets. Jets are 1 point favorites. The Chiefs are 3 point favorites, and then the Cowboys
Against the
are
Cowboys
one
at
point favorites
AT&T.
in Dallas. But every other game they are favored. Um, I have the Eagles not sweeping, going to 5-0 with a win over the Rams. I mean,
I'm
Sean
with you
McVay's a
there,
coward, and that's all that. And also, the Rams rosters, like I think
dude. It
you
stinks.
talked about this on SB
hmm
Nation NFL show,
They were my
but
team in
like
the abyss.
name 5 players on the Rams who aren't Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, or Aaron Donald. Like, how many can you
Um,
even name?
Van
Uh,
Jefferson,
the running back that they were going to trade and then
Cam
didn't.
Akers,
Yeah, okay.
Van Jefferson.
Mhm.
Um, Jalen Ramsey's gone. Like, you kind
Right.
of get to that point. Like, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, the roster stinks, so I am not giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Again, I'm not at all worried about the Rams. Like, I'm not saying they stand a chance, but like, that's a lot of like, you've got to go to the West Coast, like however much stock you put into that, like, and then you got to come home, play the Jets. Like, my point is, it's part of the attrition that is happening at this part of the season. So we both got the Eagles at 5-0. I could argue that they would lose both these games, but again, I think they pick whichever one you want. But I think they probably lose one to the Jets or
I think
Dolphins,
they
which
lose at
again,
least one. Yes.
right, and they could lose both. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm a little bit more bearish on the Dolphins. Thank you to you for teaching me the definition and the difference between bearish and bullish on the Dolphins as a whole. So, but still, like, they could wind up, picking up where they left off before things kind of fell apart last year. And if they do, then yeah, you could totally see this being 2 losses for the Eagles.
The Eagles have never lost to the Jets. I think they're 11-0, 12-0 all time. But I think that's coming to an end here. I don't fully know what to make of Aaron Rodgers at this point. Still, I'm not like, oh, he's definitely going to be amazing. But like, I'm allowing for that. I'm allowing for the vibes could shift there, and they could actually be, if not like the best team in the AFC, which is I think is a lofty statement, like a legitimate team, certainly a playoff team. So I will give the Jets a win. It's in MetLife Stadium. I will give the Jets the win. The Eagles drop to 5-1.
Me too. I think they drop looking. at the 4 games at this point, counting the Jets game up to the bye. You've got at the Jets, the Dolphins at home, at the Commanders, and then the Cowboys at home. Thank you, NFL, by the way, for giving us a Cowboys game in Philly, in an
I'm
earlier part
sure
of the year.
either Jalen Hurts or Dak will be hurt.
So my overall point, again, that notwithstanding, is I think they lose 2 of those 4. Pick whichever 2 you like. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where I think they get to the bye with 2 losses at that point. That's my so that would be what 7-2, right?
Yeah, that's not crazy. I have them 8-1, so I disagree. But I mean, I don't think that's insane.
So I mean, I'm gonna hold at 7-2. Again, I think that adjusts for some regression. That's kind of like kind of average-ish with general NFL. And if you're 7-2, like, whoa, what a horrible way to be. 7-2 coming off the loss of the Super Bowl at the bye in week 10, like you could certainly do a lot worse than that. Okay, so they come out of the bye. By the way, NFL clearly
Great
favors the
Red Hot
Eagles.
Chili Peppers album.
Gives them the bye before the emotional trip to Kansas City on Monday Night Football. So they get an extra day on top of their bye, by the way. They don't have
Yeah,
they get
but
they
they
get extra
don't
time
because the
going into
Chiefs
both
also
Monday
have
Night
a
Football.
bye in week 10.
Then,
So,
well, I hate when that happens. Like
Yep.
that should happen to everyone or to no one. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're gonna play a team that's coming off their bye when you're coming off your bye, that should happen to everyone else. But that should not happen if like the Steelers get a bye and get to face a team that's not coming off a bye. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, we kind of got to speed this up because we're taking way too long.
Yep.
So I think they lose in Kansas City.
Yep, same. I'm dropping the 8-2.
This
is like the gauntlet really of the Eagles schedule here. I mean, obviously you can kind of include the Cowboys game before the bye in that, but this really like the week 11, week 12, week 13, week 14, week 15, even like that's a big challenging stretch.
So then come home after Kansas City, short week, and you've got the Bills at home. I've really soured on the Bills,
Yep.
like myself. I'm going to lump this up as a win for the Eagles. I just don't believe in the Bills anymore. I've jumped ship entirely.
I have it as a loss. I mean, I think was it Shio Kapadia, I think said recently, I was listening to him on the Philly special, and he said the Bills lost like what, so many games last year by combined like 10 points or something. Like I know they had their flaws and they didn't really do a lot in the offseason, but they were like a really freaking good team still last year. So I'm not gonna assume like they're just falling off a cliff. I have the Eagles losing, dropping to 8-3, and then winning when they play the 49ers, so here's how I feel about this game. I feel like the Eagles are guaranteed to beat the 49ers unless the 49ers end up being way worse than everyone thinks they are, in which case this will be the 49ers Super Bowl. And if they're a bad roster and a bad team, they will just want this game so much more because it's the only thing that can validate their season. And if that's the case, if the 49ers are bad, then I think the 49ers will win this game.
So to be clear, we both have the Eagles then getting to 9-3, just overall, because I have them beating the Niners.
Yes. Same.
And so we both have a 9-3 different ways, obviously. But I want to say this on record on the mixtape. Because I've said it to you and stats. I am well on record that the Niners had certainly a very strong right to be upset about the way they lost the title game. It was unfortunate. It was nobody's fault. It's just the way football goes. Injuries happen, but it's understandable if you are bitter about that, right? Like that stinks. Like you feel like you didn't get a fair shot. Although it was fair, it just broke against you, right? That happens all the time in sports, right? That being said, we're way past the point of allowance. Like you got to chill out, Niners. Like this, like and I love that this annoys you, and Holden, like that the Cowboys live rent free in your minds, right? The Eagles, so this is the transitive property of rent freeness. The Cowboys live rent free in the Eagles' minds, and the Eagles officially, I declare, live rent free in the Niners' minds. Like the Niners are strangely, weirdly, obsessively obsessed with the Eagles at this point. You lost. It sucks. You have to move on. You cannot be dwelling on this anymore. The Eagles are going to drop the Niners. This is a 53-6 win for Philly in my mind.
It reminds me of like the Bears being obsessed with their kicker situation after they lost to the Eagles to the double. It's like their whole offseason and their whole like existence becomes defined by how they lost last season, and they're just so obsessed with it. And it feels like they almost lose sight of everything else that might matter because they're locking into this one thing. So yeah, I feel very confident the Eagles are going to win that game. Again, unless somehow the 49ers are so bad and it's just like the Eagles overlook them and the 49ers just end up wanting it so much more. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the 49ers, even if they're not going to be great, are at least going to be fine. But I have the Eagles winning this game. But then they play the Cowboys in Week 14 in Dallas, and since I had them beating the Cowboys earlier, I would be remiss. Anyone would be remiss to think the Eagles would just sweep them because first of all, Eagles haven't won at AT&T Stadium since 2017, and they haven't swept the Cowboys since 2011. So it's just not really a smart bet to say they're gonna sweep the Cowboys.
Hopefully we get 2 Dak Jalen games. I'm super interested. This is a take I'm sort of baking. I know you have a list somewhere, but like, who were the most, like, if we went in reverse order, who were the 2 best quarterbacks the Eagles played last season? It's Patrick Mahomes and Dak, right? Like if you went in reverse order, so like the most recent being the loss in the Super Bowl, right? The best quarterback prior to Mahomes that they had played was Dak, right, on Christmas Eve. Is that fair to say?
I mean, you could say Rodgers too, but it's kind of hard to gauge.
But that happened after that didn't happen after the Cowboys game, did it? That's what I'm saying. Like if you went in the 2 most recent good quarterbacks where the Eagles have played were Mahomes and Dak. So, and they lost both those games. And so I'm very interested to see this run. And some of that is contingent upon who San Francisco plays at quarterback, whether it is Brock Purdy or whatever. But like I want to see this Eagles defense against really good quarterbacks, and I want to see is Jonathan Gannon vindicated? I would love to see that. But
I mean, I think that's going to be a tricky evaluation because the Eagles are bound to regress defensively, and
you don't like this, but like
credit to Gannon.
The facts bear out that Dak owns the Eagles, and he certainly owns them in Dallas. The games in Philly have been wonky and weird for reasons we've listed many times. So yeah, I'll certainly pick the Cowboys to win this game. At the very least, like again, I had the Eagles dropping 2. I don't know if that one of those is the Cowboys loss before the bye, but I will say I think they lose this specific game. But I have the Cowboys losing at Philly in Philly as well.
Splitting, yes. I mean, splitting is the smart bet.
Then Philly at Seattle.
Yeah, I think they lose that. It's tough. Like, I think Seattle's going to be a tough place, especially because you're going to Dallas and then you're going back to Philly, I guess, unless they stay out there. But there's been no word of that. And then going to Seattle, and the Seahawks look good. Like, they got better this offseason. They had a great draft. And they had a good offseason. Assuming Geno doesn't fall off a cliff, I think they're going to be really good. So I have the Eagles losing this game.
Me too. So that puts them at 9-5. And then they come home to play the Giants.
Yeah.
I think you could argue they win all 3 of these last games, Giants, Cardinals, and then at the Giants. I know we both hate that 2 games against a division rival.
Dude, this is pathetic. Like, we've talked about like bad NFC scheduling on these episodes before, and there's been a lot of that. It feels like too much of that. So it's just like, look at the games between Eagles rivals this year. So Commanders week 4 and then week 8. So 3 games between, and then between the Cowboys, there's a bye in there. But in terms of just games played, there's only 3. And then between the Giants, there's 1. So it's so stupid because you're just playing like the same iteration of that team. It's not like, oh, you're playing this team early in the year and they could be a totally different team for better or for worse late in the year. It's like they're just playing the same game in short amount of spans. It's really dumb.
I agree.
Especially the Giants one. That's just like, come on, that's so stupid.
That first Giants game is on Christmas Day. That was one of the games that had been announced like before the whole schedule. The Cardinals game, that's so interesting because not so interesting, but it's mildly interesting because like, will Kyler Murray play? Like, are they just going to put him on ice the whole season? Like versus the Cowboys play the Cardinals in week 3. You know what I mean? Like, he's definitely not playing that game. Is my point. But still, like, I'm not at any place where I would bet on the Cardinals to win that game. I could argue that maybe they lose one of these Giants games. Like, maybe you want to, again, call regression or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. But at the very worst, I think we have the Eagles finish from a like win-loss perspective, finishing 11-6. That's the floor. We think.
I have them at 12-5. I think you can't have them losing to the Giants from a standpoint of like the Giants have earned no benefit of the doubt when it comes to beating the Eagles. Like, they haven't done it. Like, where's the track record of them doing that? It's just not. That's not to say
they beat them 2 years ago. They beat them 2 years ago, and with Joe Judge. What are you talking about?
Like, regularly. Okay, that was a one-off game. It was like Joe worst game of his career.
Why was it a one-off
it would take that very extreme. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm saying, why would you give the Giants any benefit of the doubt?
Because they did it 2 years ago when their roster was way weaker.
That's nothing to suggest there's a track record of them.
That is
certainly, they can do it again.
It's not a track record, but it's not like they. Well,
how about we look at this specific 2 years ago? Okay, so who was the coach? Yeah, Joe Judge. Different time. against Dable. What have the Giants done against the Eagles? What have they
Look,
done? They got them
I would
smoked.
the only
They
thing
got
that I would
smoked
the only thing that makes that just a
in
little
the
bit unique
playoffs.
is that's fair, but the game, the Week 18 game is hard to evaluate as far as like who Dable is against the Eagles or who the Eagles are against Dable. Like that was a one-off weird game where the Giants punted for obvious reasons,
Right.
et cetera, et
And
cetera.
how did the
You're
other
right.
two games
The,
end?
the playoff game they got completely waxed, so that's fine. All I'm saying is, to say they're going to win is not the like most off the wall thing
I
of all
just don't
time.
think
But
you can be like, oh, the Giants will definitely split with the Eagles. Any
I'm
kind of
I think we're
confidence in
all
that
kind
is
of willing.
misplaced.
I think we're all willing to say like, okay, Giants last year was cute, but like we're not willing to give you any benefit against any team unless you do it again. Like prove you're not the Vikings of last year. Prove you're not right for regression. In fact, I think 7 of the first. We'll get there. I think 7 of the first 11 games the Giants are on the road. And I think 5 of their first 6 were against playoff teams from a year ago. So like, let's see what you do, Giants. Like it's no secret that the NFC East had a shallow or shy schedule last year in terms of opponents, and they benefited from that. Like I think we agree there was a difference between Philly and Dallas, and then New York. So okay, 12-5 is what we have.
12-5 is what I have then.
All right, let's move on. And we got to move a little bit quickly. I told you I had something, so that's how the sausage gets made. So Dallas at New York. Speaking of those Giants, Week 1. The last time, unless you heard Monday Football Monday, do you know what made the last time the Cowboys visited?
I heard it.
Fine, whatever. Just so everybody knows, the last time the Cowboys visited the Giants in the season opener, it was on a Wednesday. Fun fact about that game. Kevin Ogletree game.
I think the Giants do not deserve the benefit of the doubt against the Cowboys either. So I have the Cowboys starting 1-0.
Okay, so we've got the Giants with 3 losses by way of their and the Commanders, I think, with 2 losses from the way they played the Philly, the Eagles, whatever. So Dallas is at 1-0. This is home opener for them. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers never lost there. Rodgers, McCarthy. I'm fine if they lose this game. Like they're gonna lose games, right? Like whatever. Like there's nothing. There's no more that Aaron Rodgers can hurt me. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been forever damaged by him. It will be super annoying because this will be
Cowboys,
one of the
Jets,
most
Super Bowl.
watched. This will be one of the most watched games of the year. This is the same slot that Cowboys Bengals was last year. The literal exact same slot. Week 2, CBS, and that was one of the 5 most non-watched Thanksgiving Day games from a year ago. I'll give the Jets this win. Like I'm not ready to bet on and the Cowboys are favored if you did not know that in this game, but I'm not willing to go that far. Even though I have no real belief in the Jets, there's just the Cowboys blew a 14-point lead against Aaron Rodgers' team in the fourth quarter last year. So I'm not going to trust them quite yet here.
Agree. But then I think we have pretty much, I bet you we have every NFC East team beating the Cardinals because the Cardinals could be one of the worst teams in the league this year.
Agreed, especially though Cowboys catching them early. You know what I mean? When they're who knows what.
Tyler's still not back.
Right. So we've got the Cowboys beating the Cardinals. Patriots, used to be kind of a scary thing. Very different times, obviously.
And it's in Dallas. Yep.
Right. Last time the Cowboys hosted the Patriots, who was the Cowboys quarterback?
Who was the Cowboys quarterback?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Brandon Weeden. Then Cowboys on Sunday Night Football on the road against the 49ers. They have back-to-back games in California. I don't think they'll do the stay in California thing. But
the Cowboys win, or I think this is like the Eagles, Jets, Dolphins back-to-back thing where I think the Cowboys could lose.
You think they split the road games in San Francisco and against the Chargers?
Yeah, I think they lose one of those, and I have them losing to the Chargers because of the Kellen Moore Bowl.
I would rather lose. I would rather lose. So if you're telling me we get to this point in the season and their 2 losses are against AFC teams, like by all means. So then they're on their bye. They're beating the Rams at home. Fraud Rams. Fraud McVay. We said, I'm fine giving them the loss against Philly here. So that puts them at what 6-3, 5-3, 5-3, and then they've got the Giants in Week 10. And Dak has owned the Eagles, but he's really owned the Giants. I don't think he's lost a game to the Giants since 2016, which was his rookie year. So win against the Giants, and then this is the Sunday before Thanksgiving on the road against the Panthers. They could there's always a surprise team, and you don't know Frank Reich and Bryce Young, but again, I'm really hesitant to give them a benefit right now for no reason whatsoever.
I agree. I'm winning, and I'm winning the next 3. Honestly, I have them beating the Commanders. That's in Dallas.
You have them losing at Philly in Week 9, and then you've got them. It sounds like winning 5 in a row.
4 in a row. Giants, Panthers, Commanders, Seahawks.
Well, then you said Eagles. they would win the Eagles game in
5.
Philly.
So I have them winning. I give them going from 5-3 to 10-3.
Okay. The only one that I think is touch and go is the Seahawks game,
Agreed.
or that I'm a little bit whatever, because that's the quick
It's a coin
weird
flip.
week. It's 7 days after Thanksgiving. It's Thursday Night Football. They're accustomed to that, but it is still a difficult thing. Obviously, we gave them the win against Philly at home, and then at Buffalo, that's one of the Cowboys are favored in 12 games. One of the games that they're not is on the road against the Bills. That's actually the largest line that they're underdogs in. I don't know why. I mean, that's a really generous line to Buffalo. I think it's 4.5 right now. It's just I'm not that. I mean, I'm down on the Bills, but I'm willing to give the Cowboys this loss, obviously.
Same. And then I have them losing to the Dolphins in Miami too. I'm more bullish on the Dolphins as opposed to you being bearish.
Again, thank you for teaching me that word. So you have the Cowboys losing to 75% of the AFC East.
Yeah.
And I think right now we have you have their 4 losses as all AFC teams, with the 4th being the Chargers game. So you've got them at what?
I have them at 10-5 entering week 17.
So who's the 5th loss?
I had the Jets, the Chargers, the Eagles. The Eagles.
Oh, right, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so 4 AFC losses and then the one in Philly. And then I acknowledge the Lions are fine. Again, I need to see a little bit more. Like the Lions are getting a lot of slack for beating a Packers team that missed the playoffs in Week 18.
I think Lions fans are in for, not that they're going to be trash this year, but I think like they've reached a point where they reasonably should be more excited than in a long time. They have an exciting team, but like now the pressure of expectations comes upon you. And it's not as like you're not playing with house money, and now you have to hang with some of the big boys in the conference. And if you're going to get smacked around by those, then things are going to get real quick.
Well, and the fall from grace after you are like on the podium is hard. You know what I'm saying? Like when you fail to live up to expectations, it's not like what was the Jim Schwartz lines that were like 5-0 and then they cratered and it was like, oh, this is embarrassing. Like you think that's embarrassing? Like, you're at the adults table now. This is a harder life. So I think the Cowboys beat the Lions is my point.
I agree.
They've really taken care of them. And then I think they beat the Commanders in week 18.
I have the Commanders winning.
That's silly, but okay.
You think the Eagles? So you think the Cowboys are going 5-1 in the division games?
Yeah, I think that they've done that really well.
I disagree. I think the Commanders have a potential. And to be fair, I did say I think the Commanders could split against the Eagles too. So this isn't me just sneaking a loss in there. Like I think things have potential to get weird with them, and I think it all depends too on seeding and whatnot. In this case, I think the Commanders could play spoiler in that game.
For what it's worth, the Cowboys went 5-1 in division 2 years ago, in 2021 when they last won the division. No, did they? They swept the division in 2021, and then last year they were 4-1 prior to week 18, and that was the weird, like they kind of have something to play for, but they needed the Giants to beat the Eagles. Like they kind of had their foot off the gas, and they lost that game. Obviously, so they went 4-2.
Who they lose that game to?
Well, I mean, I'm saying like they didn't take it totally seriously.
Who did they lose it to?
They lost to Sam Howell, the mighty Sam Howell.
Ooh, interesting. The Commanders.
So I have them at 12-5. You had them at 11-6.
Okay, so we both have the Eagles. Oh, then you, sorry, not we both. You have the Eagles and Cowboys at 12-5.
Then it would depend on obviously the where the losses were. I have the Cowboys dropping one, division game, and the Eagles dropping at least one to the Cowboys. So it would depend. Does anybody else pick up a second divisional loss if that's the case? In this case, I think based on the tiebreaker, because the only other non-Eagles loss the Cowboys would have had in our little hypothetical are all AFC teams. Now, granted, those are common opponents, except for the Chargers with the Eagles. But I think the tiebreaker would go to Dallas there. Again, we're a little bit in the weeds, but it's going to be a dogfight either way.
I think it is going to be close. And obviously the smart money would be on the Cowboys just because there hasn't been a repeat winner in this division in nearly 20 years now. But I do think it's going to be very, very close. And I do think it could come down to like some silly tiebreaker like that.
Wow. So 12-5, 12-5. Let's take a quick break to hear word from our sponsors, and then we will get to the other two teams. Welcome back. While we were gone, Brandon, I told you that I have to hurry. So
let's keep going. We have the Giants starting out 0-1.
Sorry, before we start, we have each of the Giants and Commanders with 4 losses. We both had
a phone call. Let me mute that. You're good. Just keep going.
Okay. We both had the Cowboys and Giants. I'm sorry, the Cowboys and Eagles sweeping the Giants and Commanders. So they're both starting this exercise with 4 losses apiece. So we're with the New York Giants now. We gave them a loss in week 1 against the Cowboys. We think they're winning, obviously, on the road in Arizona. No matter how the regression might hit the Giants, the Cardinals stink. Okay. Then they're probably losing at San Francisco.
Yep.
I mean, even if it's Sam Darnold, I would be interested. I'm very interested to see this. This is a Thursday night game, by the way. So short week across the entire country. That's a tough sell. I bet you they stay on the West Coast after they visit Arizona on Sunday instead of flying all the way back. Yeah. But I've got them losing that game. The Giants, week 3 to the Niners.
Same.
So
and then next week against the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Although I think that could be a good game. I actually think that could be a competitive game, and I think that's almost like a turning point or an inflection point in the Giants season here.
I was right, by the way. 5 of their first 6 are against playoff teams from a year ago. So Dallas, which we had them losing, at Arizona, not, but that's a win. So 1-1. At San Francisco, we have them losing. I agree with you. They lose at Seattle. That's 1-3. At Miami, I could see them stopping the bleeding a little bit there. You know what I mean?
I think it depends on the Seahawks game. I think a lot hinges. I think if the Giants are actually good-ish or somewhat decent, then they will beat the Seahawks, and then that way, moving forward, they will do enough to tread water to kind of be in playoff position. But if they drop to 1-3 and it's clear they can't hang, then I think they could go on a slide.
So I think they split the Dolphins and Bills games. Those are both on the road for them, by the way.
I also have that happening, and I have them beating the Bills because I think that game is going to be like their Super Bowl.
It's their like Niners and Philly.
Yeah.
Well, and the Bills are frauds. So okay, I'm with you. So then we both have them at
we're the real team from New York.
1-1. That's 1-3, 2-4, right, through 6 games, and then it comes. So now we're at the Giants Commanders game. I think the Giants win the one. I think they split these, but I think they both win the home games ultimately.
I have the Giants sweeping the Commanders. Spoiler alert this season. Wow. I think for whatever reason,
but not the Cowboys. No, the Giants are going to sweep them, but not the Cowboys.
I think NFL is a matchup league, and I think for whatever reason that the Giants match up well against this team. I mean, they did. Hey, has Brian Daboll ever lost to Ron Rivera? No, he is not as a head coach. So I'm going to keep that going.
Okay, so
3-4, although they lose to the Jets, drop to 3-5, entering.
And then they beat the Raiders easily.
No, I have them losing to the Raiders. Or wait, no, sorry, you're right. I have them winning.
4-5, and then we had them losing to the Cowboys. That would be 4-6. If they do split this, I think they split with Washington, so that would put them at 4-7 for me.
I have them at 5-6.
And then New England before the bye. I think they beat the Patriots.
So I have them at 6-6. It's a late bye, week 13. It feels like. I feel like the Giants, looking at their schedule and looking at where they are as a team, I feel like the late bye does not help them. I think you want the late bye if you're like a better team. I think the late bye, so I think the bye earlier in the year for them in the schedule could kind of be like things are sliding. We get a week off. We get to reset. We can make some changes. I think getting it so late does not really work so well for them.
I have them at 5-7 at the bye.
I have it 6-6.
Tough. And then they get the Packers. And I think
I have that as a win because I don't really know what to make of Jordan Love. It's a home game, so I'll give it to the Giants.
I think they win those next 2, Green Bay and then at New Orleans. I'm not ready to believe in New Orleans either. Like I'm not giving them a benefit of the doubt. It's a tough place to
play, though. It is. Like it's legitimately not an easy place to play.
Are you afraid of Dennis Allen or Derek Carr?
I'm not shaking in my boots, but do I think they could be better than the Giants? Yeah, I do.
So I've got them personally at 7-7 through the Saints game in Week 15.
Who do you think is more likely playoff team, the Saints or the Giants?
That's not fair, though. I think the Saints are because I think they win a crummy NFC South. But I think the Giants are a better team.
The reality.
I think they have a better coach and a better quarterback at this point. So I've got them at 7-7. Again, winning that game straight up. I have them losing at Philly, which we talked about. So it'd be 7-8. And they probably beat the Rams. Beat the Rams. So that's 8-8. And then they lose in Philly to put them at 8-9.
Agree. And, that Week 18 game, we'll see what that actually means. But, I have them at 8-9, which is I don't think is a disaster necessarily for them. I don't think progress has to be linear, and it's like, oh well, they won fewer games, so now it's a disaster. But I mean, it's not like something to feel amazing about. I think it kind of depends. I think it depends how they get to their final record.
Well, if they finish somewhat strong like that, you know what I mean? If they steal. We didn't give them this, but they steal one of those Philly games, you know what I mean? To like near the end of the season to give everybody some juice to kind of hold on to. Like you're right. Like, and nobody's in any danger, but you're right. Like if the season starts off slow and then they kind of save it, I do think there's some of that. Like, what was it? The 2021 Dolphins that were like, what were they like? They won their final like 7 games in a row, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Something like that. But 8-9, out of the playoffs.
It could be that, like, oh no, maybe we're just kind of stuck in the middle. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we committed to Daniel Jones and Dable's good, but like we're kind of just stuck in the middle here. And Saquon, assuming he doesn't get an extension before the season, is going to be gone. So it's like where it's going to be another big offseason for the Giants next year, where they kind of have to like you'll be entering
next offseason is the like, okay, it has to be like we got to take a serious step. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we were hanging out, but now we got to really grow.
It's 2024 becomes like a make or break year at that point.
Okay, let's wrap up. So we both have the Commanders, or I have the Commanders going 1-5 in the division. You have them at 0-6.
I have them,
or you have them 1-5 with the win against the Cowboys.
Sure. Yeah, I have them starting out with a win over the Cardinals because I think the Cardinals are going to be bad.
I don't know, dude.
It's in Washington.
Yeah. But I mean, it's week 1, so it's not like the travel's like a big thing. But
maybe fans are a little bit more juiced. Honestly, like, I mean, that might sound silly, but honestly, maybe fans are a little bit more juiced and are actually like gonna come out, at least more so, because even though the stadium sucks, like maybe people are excited about a new ownership. They're like, hey, we like that.
Fine. I'm willing to give them that win. So they're 1-0. I do think they lose at Denver. Like I think like we made Denver such a joke, but like they're not like their talent isn't like. The joke doesn't represent their talent level. You know what I'm saying? Like, but we will see. I'm not willing to give Denver.
If they can't beat the Commanders, then
right. So we've got them splitting at 1-1, and then they lose to the Bills. So they're 1-2.
Lose to the Bills, lose to the Eagles.
So they're 1-3, and I think they lose to the Bears in that Thursday night football.
Beat the Bears because I think the Bears are insanely overrated.
1-4 for me, 2-3 for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think they lose to Atlanta. I think Atlanta's a lot of people like Atlanta this year.
Taylor Heineke revenge game.
Right. That's 1-5.
And then he gets the Commanders colored Jordans.
Right. the only ones he's missing. So I've got one win for them to this point. Then I had them losing in New York. So I've got them 1-6 and then losing to Philly 1-7. I mean, like, it's just easier to like pick the wins here. Like
I have them. I was just going to say, I have them. So they dropped to 2-4 with loss to the Falcons, and I have them losing until the bye, so they get the Eagles in Philly, or sorry, Giants away, home Eagles at Patriots at Seahawks versus Giants at Cowboys versus Dolphins.
On Thanksgiving,
I have them losing
Cowboys,
all of those.
Cowboys games on Thanksgiving with short week, travel week for them.
I have them losing all those games to drop to 2-11 before the bye.
See, I think they might be 1-12. I mean, fine, maybe call it 2-11 because it's football and weird stuff happens. But yeah, like I think they're lucky to have 3 wins at the bye. But I do think they get one right after against the Rams. Yeah. The Rams stink out.
I agree. I'm giving them that, and I will also and I think they win. Yeah, okay.
I think they lose. So I think they beat the Rams in week 15 for call it their 3rd, 4th win of the year. And then
Coming
they lose
off the bye, they're more rested. Yeah.
And then they lose their final 3 at the Jets, the Niners, and the Cowboys at home.
Also, will be interesting to see which game here potentially could be the Ron Rivera bump game. Maybe it is after.
Maybe it's after Miami. Because maybe they lose at Dallas on the short week. Because you don't want to fire a coach before a short week. Right. So you lose. So maybe it's after that. Like you get the long week and a half transition period. But then maybe it's after Miami, you get the bye. But like I think it's that time, like kind of late November, early December.
But maybe because of everything that's going on with Ron Rivera, they don't want to do it till late into the season. To add to my point, because of the things that have happened with him in his personal life, and they're not going to like kick out the coach who had cancer and has gone through a lot. But I think you can make a case they could do it before week 18, because at that point it's like, okay, this game doesn't matter. And also we're doing Ron Rivera a favor by giving him like a head start.
You think the Ron Rivera-less Commanders will beat the Cowboys?
So who is the Cowboys? Who would be the Commanders interim head coach?
Probably Eric Bieniemy, I would imagine.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. That's perfect. And then Eric Bieniemy makes his case to be head coach, and the Cowboys lose to the Commanders.
All right. So we both got the Cowboys and Eagles around 12-5. Kind of agree the Giants. So these are kind of like, sort of plus minus won or lost wins, I think. 12-5 for Philly and Dallas, 8-9 for the Giants, 3-12 for the Commanders. If you told me like 3.5 is a little too low. I'm sorry, 3-14.
I have them at 4-13. Yeah.
So, but that's what I was gonna say. If you told me the over under on Commanders wins was 3.5, I'd take the over just because that's really low. But if you told me the over under was 4.5, I would probably take the under. Like it sounds silly to say like that one, extra makes a difference for me, but like I'd probably go under.
Well, no,
5.5. I'm taking
them topping out at 4. Yeah.
Right. What is that? Let me look it up real quick.
It's probably
I don't know
like
if you have it in front.
no, I don't. It's probably like I'm gonna guess. I don't know, like what 5.5,
I'm
maybe six and
looking.
a half.
It's loading. It's loading.
I feel like a
Uh,
takeaway from doing this activity was that the Commanders are going to be way worse than I expected them to be. I thought they might be like a
wow.
6-7 win team. What do
They're
you see?
they're over 6.5 is -120. The under 6.5 though is +100. I mean, if you tell me 6.5, like all day, like I mean,
Saying the
I'm not
under.
stressing
Where are
that
these wins
at
coming
all.
from? Like obviously, any Commanders fans listening is be like, "Oh, you guys hate the Commanders, bias, blah blah blah." Like,
I mean,
what is there to
if
believe
you
in?
had to get to if you had to get to 7, which you have to hit the over. I mean, granted, they've kind of like flirted with that mark the last few years, but so call it 2 division wins, right? Like, because if you got to get there, like I'm just like
Yeah,
doing the math. The
they split
Cardinals
with
would
the
be a third,
Giants. They split with either the Eagles or the Cowboys.
right? So then let's call the Cardinals, the Rams. That's 4.
Uh huh.
Maybe the Patriots would be a 5th. Maybe the Falcons, if they don't realize, would be a
The
6th, and then maybe
Bears.
the Bears, to your point, would be a 7th. So
Yeah, I
I don't
don't
know,
know,
man.
man. I'll also
Um,
say, as much as the Eagles have that tough schedule, and that very much is no denying it. There's some other teams here in the division, like some tough slates here, like that slate that the
the
Cowboys have
division,
of
I think
Commanders on Thanksgiving, or well, even if you want to include the Panthers in there, but we'll not do that for now. But Cowboys, Commanders on Thanksgiving, and then Seahawks, Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions. That's like a that's a tough stretch there of 6 games.
my takeaway personally, like so has a Cowboys slant. Like we both agree the Commanders are pretty irrelevant in this title race, the divisional title, obviously. If you're a Cowboys fan, like expect the Eagles to get off to a nice start because that's the friendlier part of their schedule. But like you want the Giants buried, right? Like because that's like you got to have the Giants pick up their losses right there and kind of take them out of it,
And
and
they
then
might
you've got
be.
to. That's what I'm saying. Like if you're the Cowboys, you got to get like maybe through that Niners Chargers stretch we talked about in position, kind of running, shot for shot with the Eagles, because you got it. Like, where does the Eagles' tough stretch start that we talked about here? You could
I
call
mean,
it
you
week
could say
9
before
with
the bye.
so from week 9 on, Philly has the Cowboys at home and then the bye,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
Chiefs, Bills, Niners, Cowboys. So if we
And
look
then
at from
Seahawks
like the
at
well, I know,
Seahawks.
but if we look at just the Cowboys Eagles games, like if we stick to that as a border, so you're talking about that's a 6-week stretch, and you could see maybe the Eagles losing even like 4 of those games, and you control 50% of that if you're the Cowboys, right?
I have the
And
Eagles
versus
losing
the
4 of those games.
so that's what I'm saying. But if you're the Cowboys stretch in that same exact stretch of time is the Eagles. So if you won one or obviously hopefully both of those games, your other 4 games, because the Cowboys don't have the bye, are the Giants, the Panthers, the Commanders, 3 non-playoff teams from last year, and the Seahawks. You know what I'm saying? Like that's if you're the Cowboys, like that's the time that you need to like build the wall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
but then
between
it
you and
goes
the Eagles.
Seahawks, Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, both Bills and Dolphins on the road, and then the Lions. Like
That's
that's
what
a
I'm saying.
tough
Like
5 week
you got to
stretch.
get to that. You got to get to that Bills game. That's my point in like what I've realized in this exercise. If you're the Cowboys, you got to get to that Bills game with some room to breathe against the Eagles, and I think they
Yeah.
will. Like I think when we get to week 15, the Cowboys are in first place in the division. But obviously they haven't played the Bills at this point in time. So like I think
At
they're
week
going to need that
15, I
time.
do agree.
Yeah. So that's like if they've got like a 1.5, 2 game lead at that point, I think it's theirs. But like if you're just like a game ahead, if you've split with Philly and you're kind of like going again shot for shot in a divisional sense and everything like that, then it's a little bit more touch and go. But if you get to that week 15 game against Buffalo with a 2 game lead on Philly, I think it's a wrap. That's what you got to hope for if you're a Cowboys fan.
I think looking at like kind of all the toughest slates here for every team, we just touched on the Eagles and the Cowboys, the Giants. It is that
There,
start, I feel like. I mean, because it's the Cardinals, obviously look beatable, but Cowboys, Cardinals, 49ers, Seahawks, Dolphins, Bills. Like you could, if you have to go at least 2-4 there, you have to. And even then, it might not be good enough. But if you're 1-5 or obviously 0-6, like it's just kind of, it's not great.
so what is the day of week 12? Do you have the dates? Like the dates, the good days of the calendar. So week
No.
12, like Giants, Cowboys, or Giants, Patriots. Can you look up the day of the
Hmm.
week the day of the year that is? Giants, Patriots in week 12.
Yeah.
You're looking. You're looking. I'm buying your time. You
It
got this.
is November 26th. That doesn't really help.
November
When is
20.
that?
So that's the Sunday before Thanksgiving. So the
Okay.
Sunday that is the Giants' 5th home game. 5th. So you're talking like until the final week of November. They only play 4 home games. I have to go now, so let's go ahead and end on that note. What do you want to say, Brandon? I have to go. So give me 3 words.
See you later.